As I mentioned in my Butt Ugly Martians film and TV review, there are a number of Butt Ugly Martians video games that I wanted to take a look at. One was on the big boy consoles at the time, Butt Ugly Martians Zoom or Doom, and the other one was on Game Boy Advance, BKM Battles. There was also a third game on PC, which was an obstacle course game, and we'll get to that one as well. I'll surprise no one by saying that, just like the show itself, these games weren't exactly a runaway success, but I was interested to see what they'd be like. For those of you who need a refresher, or those who haven't watched the other video, shame on you by the way, Butt Ugly Martians was a short-lived, cheaply animated 3D cartoon show about 3 Martians who were sent to conquer the Earth on the orders of an evil tyrannical emperor. Nothing about it appealed to anyone, and after a single season, the show and intellectual property were officially shit-canned. However, as a dying breath, it released some video games that were made by the dudes at Vivendi Universal, a racing game and a platforming game, as well as a jack-of-all-trades game, which were the go-to genres in the 2000s for people who had an intellectual property but no idea what kind of game they'd make from it. The first of these 3 games is the racing game Zoom or Doom, and it's probably the most substantial of the games. Its creation actually resulted in the purging of StokeMuldoon.com, a beloved website by many, made as a sort of Easter egg for the show, and a means to promote the show's best character. Now, to my shock, this game actually has a campaign mode of sorts, and the campaign has cutscenes, which are actually better quality than the show that it's based on. Yeah, I was shocked as well. We're looking at a video game in which the animation in the game is better than the TV show it's based on. I've seen plenty that look worse, and 1 or 2 that are on par, or at the very least almost on par. But Jesus H. Christ, everything about this game's cutscene animation fucking dwarfs the animation from the show. The video game's plot is really basic. Emperor Bog wants to conquer the Earth, and for some reason he doesn't ever think that sending his legion to do it is a good idea, and instead he sends 3 jackasses. The 3 jackasses aren't making enough progress, so he decides to impede their progress and tells them that he's setting up a racing circuit, and the 3 of them need to compete with a bunch of basically the show's villains for his affection. So basically, this race is to prove who's capable of leading the invasion on an entire planet. Because, you know, if I was going to invade a planet like the planet of the Asari from Mass Effect, I'd send fucking Michael Schumacher to do it, wouldn't I? So, yeah, anyway, there's loads of motivation for the characters to win here. Well, the Martians like the Earth and have friends there who don't appear in this game. In fact, weirdly enough, the human characters do not appear in any of the games. So, they want to stop the invasion from happening, and so they step up to win the race. Their logic is basically that if one of them wins, they get what they want. However, there are 3 other aliens who want to lead an actual invasion of Earth, and so they are the biggest threat to the Martians' plans, as they are quite formidable. However, on top of all of this, there's the wild card, Stoke Muldoon, who intercepts the message and decides to enter himself so he can more or less win his planet's mercy. I fucking love this guy. Stoke Muldoon is in this game and he is actually playable, which is fucking awesome. However, unfortunately, his actor, Robert Stack, died between the series and the game's production, so he has a replacement actor. The replacement actor sounds more like one of those commandos from like the Army Men RTS games, and admittedly it doesn't entirely fit, but the guy does try really hard to get the mannerisms right, and in some cases he does sound very close to Robert Stack's version of the character.
May the most devious racer win!
Why, that egg-headed alien slime, treating Earth like the prize in an ugly intergalactic pageant. But wait, if I enter the race and win, I'll be in charge of the invasion, and then I'll just cancel it. Stote Muldoon fears no alien. I will protect the planet. Oh, Muldoon, you the man.
However, I do really wish we could have had Robert Stack's portrayal of the character. However, I do appreciate this guy's effort. The game starts off with the trick question of who do you want to play as? I thought this was a cute joke and laughed before picking the obvious choice of Stoke Muldoon. Believe it or not, who you pick in the campaign does affect what ending you get. Stoke and the main Martians have different endings from what I've seen. It's nothing amazing, but there's something for your efforts at least, which is better than what Namco Bandai has ever given us. The game itself is decent for what it is. It's not the best thing I've ever played, but it at least feels competently made for the most part. It looks fine, good even at some aspects, but I'm not sure if the Dolphin emulator is upscaling it. Oh, and to more or less clarify and be transparent, I am using Dolphin emulator because I couldn't get a working PS2 copy of this game. Either way, everything looks as it's supposed to. The visual design is on point and there's a nice variety of colours. My only issue visually is that the racetrack looks like a mishmash. Like, I get that they're trying to be creative, but none of them look like real places and they look like messes, just made for the game. Maybe it's a style that some people like, but I never especially did. I also get the feeling that these are supposed to be real places in the universe, but none of them look plausible to me. The soundtrack isn't too bad either. I won't listen to it in my own time, but it's tolerable, and hell, compared to something like Crazy Frog Racer, it's heavenly. In fact, compared to Looney Tunes Space Race and Crazy Frog Racer, this is actually a fucking masterpiece. It controls a lot better, the courses are far more interesting, there's a reason to choose between characters, the power-ups aren't unique, but they're mostly functional, minus this rocket which is just impotence personified. And I feel like there's something resembling a point to this game overall. Whereas, honestly, Looney Tunes Space Race is like purgatory and Crazy Frog Racer is hell. I do feel like there are a fair few advantages for the game, and when you're neck and neck, it actually resembles something fun. However, it's one of those racing games where the second that you end up in 7th place, you're fucked. I'm personally of the opinion that it makes the game far more interesting if 7th place has a chance to become 1st place again. However, in this game, one bad stroke of luck from a suddenly appearing hazard or a cheeky bastard with a power-up utterly destroys your chances of ever competing properly again. Rayman M, for example, is a game where getting hit by a hazard slows you down, but it doesn't stop you outright, and there are shortcuts and such which will allow you to catch up with your opponents. There are also hidden areas in the game which allow you to actually have an advantage if you know the game better. So you can actually go from last place to 1st, unless you absolutely utterly fuck it up. The point is that it offers a chance at redemption, whereas in this game, you end up getting hit by a power-up and you're unable to move and slide straight into a hazard, which also forces you to stay still, and you're basically stuck for 10 seconds and you've lost the race. There's no way of coming back from that. There are several stages and races, and I appreciate this as the challenge ramps up, but I don't like how the final one has you do 9 races. It lasts a lifetime and it gets old real fast. Personally, I think each one should have been like 3 races with gradual difficulties. It would also mean that you use all of your tracks once instead of doing them multiple times per playthrough. I get that they want to add length to the game, but this feels artificially padded and less effort based. Rayman M does the gradual difficulty thing, 3 tracks per league, and it's actually a lot longer than this game. There's actually a kind of cool feature involved where you can taunt other players, and this results in them slowing down a bit so they can retaliate. You need some food energy to do this, but if you can pull it off, it distracts your opponent enough that they slow down a little just to yell at you, and you gain a slight advantage.
Your prize is doomed, Earthman.
Mother McGreevy!
I actually like this as an alternate tool to use against your opponent, especially if you don't have any power-ups, but it also works as well with power-ups because you can launch one as soon as they slow down. And there's a level of realism in it which I can definitely appreciate, as well as it being quite tonally apt for the show that it's based around. The game has several different endings. The Martian one is kind of predictable, they just celebrate that they won. Stoke Muldoon has his own ending, where the Emperor is pissed that Stoke won't invade his own planet. So they're kind of screwed now, because nobody else can invade the planet, apparently. So the Martians wipe his memory and go back to invading the planet. I wasn't actually able to beat this game myself. I mean, it's one hell of a time sink to do the last set of races, and if you fuck them up, you gotta do it all over again. It's like an hour each attempt, and I apologise, but I don't want to waste hours of my life trying to beat the same thing over and over again. I did find the endings on YouTube. I've seen 2 of the endings, but I don't know what the other ones would be. And I'm not gonna lie, the amount of effort it would take to fucking win them, I don't really care. I mean, if anyone wants to go home and do some homework and let me know, you're more than welcome, but I honestly don't care what Jax the Conqueror does after winning. Well, here's a landmark, my first Game Boy Advance review. This is a good day. No, it's not. Butt Ugly Martians BKM Battles is a headache on a game cartridge. It's a nice time capsule which offers a window into the early 90s or even late 80s game design. The problem is that it was made in 2002. To my surprise, this actually has a story with stills and a series of text narration. It's as bog standard as you could imagine. For a start, this thing looks I know it's Game Boy Advance, but some games on GBA look way better than this. This looks kind of ugly, and I wouldn't even say it's the kind of ugly which is like graphical limitations, it's just badly designed. The game puts you into BKM mode from the get-go, which makes me ask further why that wasn't an option in the show. You fly around the level and shoot the fuck out of these turrets and enemies, and these towers and other things. You gotta love this game as it just lets you fly past everything and ignore it. You only have to stop to find keys and then you can advance. You have to fight Stoke Muldoon, but you can defeat him by throwing an amnesia crystal at him, rather than befriending him and making him an ally, like they should have done in the show in the first episode. The game feels like it was made in the era of NES or SNES. It's so basic and boring, it looks ugly and it sounds... Well, the soundtrack is this beat. It sounds like music that would play at a club if they wanted everyone to fucking leave. And it's on a loop. Bearing in mind that this is the first game I've ever played that gave me a headache, and I needed to take a break from it. Crazy Frog Racer didn't even have this effect on me. I'm kind of impressed, but also pissed at the same time. I only got past the first level of this mess before I decided, nope, no more, because, I mean, look at it. It's suffering on a cart. Nobody should have ever uncovered this. This one was so lately discovered by me that I had written a fair chunk of this script before finding it and booting it up. I actually saw screenshots of this and was looking for it for a while, but didn't find it listed until well late into this project. This game was exclusively for PC and is a wee bit like Shark Tale Fantastic Fun, but admittedly a bit better. Well, Fantastic Fun had better presentation, I guess, but this game is way better. It's more fun for a start, and the game actually feels like it's part of Butt Ugly Martians' universe, whereas Shark Tale was just random shit that didn't make any sense. I had to get this game on a virtual boot disc to get it to work, and when it launched I was greeted with this mode? You get thrown into this game mode and have the shit kicked out of you by overwhelming odds. I actually thought this was a glitch of some kind. I mean, bearing in mind I am more or less emulating the disc, so I thought, oh no, has it like skipped to a different part of the game? Now, it might seem like I'm complaining, but it's actually a decent way to establish the plot. You're thrown into a meant-to-lose fight, having no idea what you're even doing, and you're instantly penalised. It's unfair, but that's the point of it. Emperor Bog and Dr. Damage tell you that you suck, and you need to go on some boot camp obstacle training course if you want to be back on his Earth Invasion Squad team. So you pick your name. Yes, you get pre-generated names that are given to you. I picked the one that would get me cancelled on Martian Twitter. This was 2002, guys, it was a different time. The animation is just lower quality than the TV show, in my opinion. Partly because it's FMV, which is weird because this is 2002. And partly because this thing seems to have a lower budget than Zoom or Doom. Which is funny because it's actually a bit more ambitious and is on a more powerful machine. Even when the animation is lower quality, it never feels like that much of a fall from grace. Because the show itself looks pretty shit, so they more or less get away with it. Anyway, you also pick your Martian, so I went with the one that I like the most. I appreciate that's like having a favourite potato out of 3 identical potatoes, but I still have a favourite. So there are several mini-games throughout this thing, about 8 courses. Several of the courses are mini-games repeated, but with a tougher challenge, or some sort of curveball thrown in. It's not the worst thing ever, and the game can be beaten in 45 minutes or less. There's this racing game where you have to avoid traffic whilst going as fast as possible, and avoiding red lights and cops as well. Once you get the hang of it, it's kind of fun. I won't play it of my own volition in my spare time, but it's fun enough. There's another version of this where you have to navigate an asteroid field and shoot through it with a laser. Admittedly, I didn't know I had the laser because I skipped the tutorial, and didn't think to press the spacebar because I'm an idiot. Now, some people ask why I'm skipping the tutorial. Well, it's because it's painfully slow, and you get a long ass lecture on how to do the most basic of fucking things.
Right arrow keys to move left and right. Press the down arrow key to crouch and the up arrow key to jump.
Seriously, my grandmother didn't need this, and I had to teach her how to use Word from scratch at one point. So yeah, I skipped most of these tutorials because I wanted to kill something by the time I got a third of the way through any of them. Speaking of homicidal tendencies, the next game is a fighting game, which I think could have been a game on its own, if they programmed some combos and whatnot, but sadly it's just a small aspect of a larger game. You pick an opponent, hold the back key, and mash the spacebar. There, you win. There's also a super move, but I found that it always gets interrupted after doing it the first time. What I find funny is that you can win the fights, but somehow not even achieve the minimum grade. Like, what? I won the fight, that should be the passing grade. The next game on my list is a Breakout clone, which is, yeah, it's bad. For a start, it's 3D, which I would love to say that makes it super cool and realistic and futuristic, or whatever they were going for, but it actually looks ugly as sin. It's not even because the game is 20 years old. Even if they did this last week using God of War Ragnarok's graphic engine, it would still look like shit. You're playing on a horizontal plane for a start, when normally Breakout is played vertically or isometric. So it looks weird, like single player ping pong. And no, this other guy doesn't seem to do much. He's just sort of decoration. Also, he kind of entices you to win, so you can, I don't know, fuck him or something. I didn't actually succeed, so I have no idea what you do to him. The 3D lower perspective gameplay also cripples the game in another aspect. Because they made you move at a realistic speed, this means that the game never changes pace from beginning to end, which part of the fun and the challenge of a Breakout clone is the increase in speed, and without that it's boring as sin. Actually, why is that a phrase? Sin is typically very interesting. No, stop distracting yourself. This is a boring Breakout clone and you need to analyse it. Anyway, the issue that I have is that it puts the game in the worst part of limbo. It's really difficult to win this because it's monotonous, slow and boring, but it's also nearly impossible to fail unless you've recently received a blow to the head. Well, I managed to technically fail because the ball got stuck, and I got stuck in limbo by more or less being unable to do anything. In the end, I had to skip the challenge and lose my score. I'd like to have known what medal I'd have gotten, but sadly I'll never know. Actually, that's not sad at all, I don't care. Moving on. You then get intercepted by this prick, who is like a con artist in the show. I don't like this guy's hands, they look gross. They remind me of that one meme where the dude has 2 big toes instead of feet. Honestly, I'm not big on genocide, but in this case, I do support it, and this guy's entire race should be purged. Anyway, he gives you the opportunity to gamble your points away with a slot machine. I normally wouldn't bother, but thought I'd do it for the video. Turns out I lost 250 points, despite earning 300 points in the game. Go figure, I got completely fucked. Anyway, finally, you have to fight Infinite, who thinks he's Clint Eastwood. It's the hardest fight in the game, but it's still very much doable. The game gives you an ending based on your score. I didn't even get the passing grade, which is a real tragedy or something. Anyway, I'm about to be horrifically tortured to death when it's revealed that Damage and Emperor Bog have had a change of heart and will let me make amends by basically getting a less abysmal score. I'd actually rather die, to be honest, but I guess this'll do. Anyway, I didn't take up the Bogmeister on his offer to redeem myself and instead just left. Because fuck this shit. To conclude, this is the end of my journey into the world of Butt Ugly Martians. Finally. You know, in a weird way, I kinda grew to appreciate this series over time. Like, I don't like it, and I'll probably never come back to it unless I find some more stuff that I can take a look at. But it is a nice little window into a failed dream. A passion project that lacked passion or project. Part of me wonders, as I watch and play and take in Butt Ugly Martians, if it could ever have been brought back as a franchise. Like, I don't want or expect it to, but part of me would be happy to see it come to Netflix or something. Maybe Disney could buy it and turn it into an even bigger nightmare. Anyhow, that's me done. Forever. Join me next time as I embrace some nostalgia over the festive period.
Right here in my heart, I'll never forget the warmth of your smile. Wherever you go, no matter how many miles, together we'll be.
Remember,
Wherever you stay,
we'll never forget you
I
guys.
knew it